The original's brothers were terrified of Michael, who ended up being imprisoned by a 16-year-old witch. When their location was exposed, they fled into the mountains. Davina secretly called Camille back, letting her know that she was fine and didn't need to worry. Little did she know, Klaus was hiding right behind Camille. Using his extraordinary vampire hearing, he overheard every word of the conversation between the two friends. He expressed his urgency in finding Davina because she had resurrected his father. Camille said she couldn't help him, as Davina hadn't given her the address.
On the contrary, love. You just had to know how to listen. For instance, I heard cicadas, and I heard terns. The real giveaway was the church bells. Did you know Davina's family owns a little cabin in Terrebonne Parish? It's been abandoned for years, but a brief glimpse at a map shows it's just a mile from the loveliest little chapel.
Camille asked Klaus what his plan was.
Davina wants to use Michael to kill me. We just have two options. One, you reason with her. Two, I don't think you'd like to very much.
With no other choice, Camille agreed to accompany Klaus. Meanwhile, Michael was doing his morning workout, and Davina commented that he didn't look well. Michael complained that he didn't want to be a coward hiding in the shadows, but Davina said they weren't going anywhere until she severed the link between Klaus and his friends. She stroked the bracelet, stating that she had reinforced it with a spell, and it would no longer come off easily. Michael, however, mocked Davina's magic as useless in a real fight, remembering how she was crushed by a werewolf. Davina knew Michael was right.
You're so tough? Teach me.
Michael tossed the prepared weapon to Davina, but Davina said she wasn't ready yet. Michael responded that when he first learned to fight, he was even younger than Davina is now. He swung a wooden stick at Davina, but she blocked it. He demanded that Davina not let the enemy predict her moves. Davina accidentally breaks her ankle. Michael ordered her to stand up, saying that enduring pain is a true warrior's weapon. Davina, in great pain, forced herself to stand up, with her ankle badly hurt. Davina thought it over and decided to call Cole. Cole asked where she was. Davina said she would send him the address and asked him to bring some medicine for her injury along the way. Night fell, and Klaus and Camille took a moment to rest in a bar. Klaus, however, pulled out Papa Tun's curved dagger, stating that he had killed his parents once and could do it again. Camille grabbed Klaus's hand and asked him to dance with her. She persuades Klaus to take a break from his hatred of his parents to feel the true happiness of the world. They embraced and danced together, but with a spin, Klaus vanished without a trace. Cole had already arrived ahead of time and was helping Davina apply medicine to her ankle. Davina attempted to stand, but the pain in her ankle caused her to stumble and fall beside Cole. Seeing the opportunity, Cole began to whisper sweet words to Davina.
You've got a lecherous heart, Davina Claire. I won't be used, not for my body nor my medicinal herbs. We can hold hands, that's it.
A slightly ajar door caught Cole's attention, and he pushed it open to step inside. The room was filled with herbs and spell books, and Cole searched around, quickly discovering the white oak stake in a drawer. He tried to pick up the white oak stake, but Michael grabbed his wrist. Michael didn't recognize him and simply assumed Cole was a petty thief with ill intentions. To save his life, Cole had no choice but to claim that he was a warlock who could secretly lift Davina's spell imprisoning Michael. Only then did Michael release him. Cole then sneaked over to the sleeping Davina, trying to remove her bracelet. Davina suddenly woke up, and Cole had to lie, saying that Davina's phone was full of messages. Davina took the phone and saw a message from Camille. Klaus had already approached the cabin, peering through the window, but the room was empty. It turned out that Davina and Cole had used an invisibility spell together. Klaus walked to another room, where his father's enraged face was reflected in the window. Though he found nothing, Klaus did not give up. He walked back to the yard, pulled out a stick stuck in the ground, looked at it, and then threw it into the cabin with a reverse grip. The stick shot through the window like an arrow. Davina panicked and tried to dodge, but hit her head on the table and passed out. Cole approached Davina, but Michael suddenly grabbed him, threatening Cole to break the spell immediately. Cole had no choice but to comply. He grabbed Davina's wrist and recited a spell. The bracelet glowed, and Michael was freed. He appeared before Klaus, gripping the white oak stake.
You seem rather impatient. Are you so eager to meet your end?
I'm only eager to stand over your burning corpse again.
After delivering his threat, the father and son once again launched into battle. Michael knocked Klaus to the ground. He raised the white oak stake, ready to stab Klaus, but Klaus kicked him away. Michael tried to pick up the white oak stake, but Klaus stomped on his wrist. The two exchanged blows for several rounds, and once again, Klaus was knocked down by his father. Michael stabs the white oak stake at Klaus. Klaus seized the moment and, catching him off guard, drove the curved dagger into his father's body. Michael let out a horrific scream and collapsed to the ground. As the dagger gradually sank into his body, Klaus pulled the stake out with effort, hesitating as he looked at his unconscious father. Camille hurried over and begged Klaus not to harm Davina. Klaus told her that Davina was still alive, and Camille, moved, hugged him tightly. This touched Klaus, and he decided to heed Camille's plea and let Michael live. He tossed Michael into the car's trunk, closed it, and walked away. But Michael, who had been unconscious, miraculously regained consciousness, and then, struggling, he pulled the curved dagger out from his chest. She is the most stunning doppelganger in history, yet she's obsessed with entangling herself with both brothers. Klaus and Elijah both secretly fell for her. In front of everyone, Tatia kissed Klaus, leaving Elijah heartbroken as he walked away. The next moment, Tatia approached Elijah, openly expressing her affection for him. Hearing his beloved's heartfelt confession, Elijah was overwhelmed with emotion, and they passionately kissed. Esther blew out the candle, and Elijah woke from his memory. When it came to Tatia's death, mother and son had conflicting stories. Esther claimed that her son had killed his own lover, but Elijah accused his mother of draining Tatia's blood to suppress Klaus's werewolf nature. Each stood by their version, and Elijah once again fell into his memories. Klaus was curled up helplessly on the ground, surrounded by the remains of villagers. He had transformed into a wolf and savagely torn 6 villagers apart. Elijah approaches him with the cloves, stating that this transformation can only seem to stem from family genetics, and the father is furious about it. Klaus, in tears, asked if he was the only one cursed like this. Elijah did not answer. Elijah assured him that he would always be his brother. Tatia's arrival interrupted the brothers' conversation. Seeing the mutilated corpses on the ground, she turned and fled in terror. Elijah hurried after her. At that moment, Elijah had just turned into a vampire and still couldn't control his thirst for blood. The cut on Tatia's hand triggered Elijah's bloodlust, and he grabbed his beloved, sinking his vampire fangs into her throat. Elijah refused to accept this as the truth, firmly believing that it was their mother who had killed Tatia, but Esther insisted that she had altered his memory to spare him from the torment of guilt. Elijah, cradling Tatia's body, sought his mother's help. Esther promised him that he wouldn't suffer from these memories and instructed him to clean himself up so no one would know what he had done. This became Elijah's way of avoiding guilt. He created a tightly shut red door in his mind, locking away all the brutal truths behind it. Seeing that Elijah was beginning to doubt himself, Esther pressed her advantage, revealing that Elijah had always feared he might hurt Haley, just as he had hurt Tatia and Celeste. Esther claimed she could give him and Haley a brand new life, where they could even have another child. Elijah's eyes grow panicky, but he still refuses his mother's offer. To further break down Elijah's will, Esther created a false dream for him. In this dream, Haley appeared and swiftly bit through her mother's neck, then moved forward to break the chains that bound Elijah. After being saved, Elijah was so weak that Haley said he could suck his own blood. Elijah hesitated to try, fearing he would lose control and drain Haley's blood completely, but Haley assured him that she wasn't afraid. She then embraced Elijah, and they kissed passionately. Haley then exposed her neck, and Elijah, no longer hesitating, bit down. In the real world, Finn and his mother watched over an unconscious Elijah. Esther remarked that Elijah must confront his deepest fears in order to completely shatter his psychological defenses. In the dream, Elijah was bloodthirsty and savage, relentlessly feeding on Haley's blood, unaware that his real self was still trapped in place. Covered in blood, Klaus finally subdued his father, driving the curved dagger into Michael's body. He then tossed Michael into the trunk, closed the car door, and walked away. But in the trunk, Michael mysteriously regained consciousness. He reached into his chest, fumbling until he pulled out the curved dagger. Davina remained unconscious from the impact, so Cole and Camille decided to take her to the hospital. Klaus, having not been invited in, couldn't enter the house. Camille stepped outside and demanded that Klaus not harm Davina or her friends. Klaus agreed and handed the white oak stake to Camille. Camille went to the yard alone to start the car. Klaus walked to the cabin door and ruthlessly exposed Cole's true identity. Cole dropped his facade and taunted Klaus. Klaus loudly called out to Camille, asking if he could break his promise, but Camille didn't respond. Sensing something was wrong, Klaus walked over to the car to investigate, only to find the trunk empty. Klaus called Elijah for help. Unaware that Elijah's fate was uncertain at that moment, he demanded that Cole wake Davina, but Cole refused to help, leaving Klaus with no choice but to walk away in frustration. Cole then approached Davina, but just then, his phone rang. He ignored the call, but his nose started to bleed, forcing him to answer it. Finn asked Cole about the progress, ordering him to either kill Davina or sabotage the spell that would sever the connection. Cornered, Cole continued to search Davina's room. He found the herbs she used for the spell and recited an incantation to destroy them. Davina woke up from her unconscious state, and Cole entered to explain what had happened. Davina insisted on finishing the spell immediately. Michael grabs Camille and walks through the jungle, desperate to find a human to feed on to regain his strength. A group of people partying in the woods caught his attention. Klaus quickly tracked them into the woods, only to witness a bizarre scene. Dozens of humans stood still, wearing masks. Michael had them under his control, using them to stall Klaus, who didn't hesitate to fight the puppets. Cole volunteered to help Davina complete the spell. They tried again and again, but continued to fail. Davina was puzzled. She grabbed Cole's wrist, trying to transfer her magic to him, but she accidentally saw what Cole had done and discovered his true identity. Davina released Cole's hands and cast a spell, throwing him against the wall. Cole fought back, but he couldn't bring himself to seriously hurt Davina and was swiftly subdued by her. Davina accused Cole of endangering her friends. Cole admitted that both his father and mother were psychopaths, and though he was their child, he was filled with resentment toward the family. Davina asked how he managed to remove the spell from her bracelet. Cole replied that he had some experience in creating and destroying these dark objects. After a night of fierce fighting, Klaus had destroyed all the puppets. Haley called Klaus to inform him that Elijah was missing, but Klaus said he was too busy hunting down his father to help. He reminded Haley that if she found Elijah, he should come quickly to assist him. Klaus tracked Michael to a warehouse. Michael drank Camille's blood, and Klaus says he'll pay for it. Michael dropped Camille, and they began to fight once more. Davina and Cole also arrive at the warehouse, and they decide to suck the magic out of the white oak stake so they can prevent Klaus from dying in battle. Cole mentioned that the spell was too complex and required both of them to perform it together. He signaled Davina to draw power from him. The battle between Klaus and Michael intensified. Klaus knocked Michael to the ground, seized the white oak stake, and tried to kill his father. Michael threw the curved dagger at Camille, and Klaus rushed to save her. Michael took the opportunity to drive the white oak stake into Klaus's chest. Davina and Cole's spell has worked, and Michael watches with satisfaction as Klaus falls to the ground, his face turning blue. This was the closest Klaus had ever come to death, but Davina and Cole's spell was saving Klaus's life. Noticing that his son wasn't burning as expected, Michael realized something was wrong. He found Davina and Cole casting the spell and tried to disrupt it. Camille knelt beside Klaus, trying to pull out the stake. Cole let go of Davina's hands to confront his father, but Michael easily overpowered him, sending him flying with a single blow. Michael grabbed Davina and sank his fangs into her neck. The spell was interrupted, but at that moment, Camille managed to pull the stake from Klaus's chest. Michael returned to the warehouse, raging at Camille and threatening to tear her heart out. Marcel arrived just in time to save Camille. He attacked Michael without hesitation but was quickly knocked to the ground. Michael pointed the stake at Marcel, only to be restrained from behind by Haley with chains. Haley managed to take down Michael. By now, Klaus had regained consciousness and stood up. Davina also stepped forward, glaring at Michael with determination.
It's over, Michael. You're outnumbered. Are you going to beg for your miserable life?
You think having people makes you strong? It proves how weak you are. Come find me when you don't have fools, women, and children battles.
After saying all of this, Michael fled in a panic, while Klaus couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief.